Hey guys, and welcome to PitchIT Live. We are live streaming on our various social media platforms such as LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook communities as ConnectWise Tips and Tricks and ConnectWise Boss. My name is Adam Belansky. I am founder and CEO of Sierra Pacific Group and the creator of the ConnectWise Boss Facebook community. We help technology business leaders thrive and leverage all of the ConnectWise products to get the most out of their systems and businesses with proven best practices quickly and efficiently. We've done over 1,000 plus implementations and custom projects, and we've cut the corners and really done a lot of the hard work so you can cut the corners and get that quick implementation done really efficiently. So I'm here on PitchIT Live, and I'm going to bring on my co-host, Sean Lardo. How you doing, man?
Doing great. I am doing some internal communication, getting things ready here. Craig Fulton, everybody knows who Craig Fulton is, can't seem to find the link. So I literally just tagged him on the CW Boss group and said, here, Craig, here's the video. Here we go. We're live streaming. So I hope he's watching right now so he hears this happening live.
I'm sure he is.
Doing great though, man. It's been a very good week. We actually had two sessions this week for we had two sessions for workshops for the vendors. Amy Luby, she was on Tuesday, and today Andrew Hedden is actually doing it. So both powerhouses in this space, and it's been pretty effective from what I can tell. It was really good on Tuesday, and I'm sure Andrew, it's actually happening right now. I'm not there. I'm here with you instead. And we kicked off our second PitchIT webinar series with Tom Lawrence and myself on our Business Technicality YouTube channel. So this is a chance for all these guys. I say, thanks, Craig, for making it. That's a whole technology thing. So we kicked off the other one, like I said, with Tom Lawrence and myself. It started yesterday, where we're changing it up. Where on this one, it's me, you, and we're getting to know the vendor intimately as much as possible, one-on-one, basically. With Tom and myself, we're bringing two on a time, treating like a panel discussion of sorts, so they can start to actually showcase their expertise in the space itself, as opposed to, hey, I created a really cool company and product. So that started. So actually everybody can look to see our 2 shows a week, me with you and I, and then there'll be 2 shows a week with Tom Lawrence, myself, and 2 of the vendors. So
it's been a blast. We have 3 more weeks, I think, of this.
Yes,
and
we have a
2
lot.
weeks. It's exciting. I think probably it's just one of the cool things I just see is just a lot of vendors I just have never met, right? And a lot of new innovation going on. So I'll let you speak to those points.
Oh, totally. So yeah, exactly. You already have. Thank you for putting the banner on there, because just in case I forget.
Dude.
Jason McGee, ConnectWise, this promise was made, talking about, and you just mentioned innovations. The 3 promises, the one promise in particular was more innovations faster. Great way for this to happen is through this type of program, through our entire Invent team, all the vendors they work with. They constantly, companies are innovating, right, and creating more products. The other thing is investing even more in partner growth. There's a huge investment in making PitchIT be even more successful, right? It is turned into a point of where this is our future for all of our partners, and easier to do business with. Very simple. All the vendors that are in PitchIT, all the vendors that are in Invent program, everything around it is all built towards companies that actually work directly with MSPs. They're either selling to or selling through them, right? But at the end of it, it's to make it easier to do business, to transact, to solve the problems, as much holistically as you can as possible. So yeah, that's that.
Nice. Well, we're here for one reason, is to bring our contestants on, interview them, and so forth. So today we have Wes MacArthur of Nexera. So how you doing, man?
Awesome, guys. How you doing?
Doing great. What's going on, Wes?
Everything. So thrilled to be part of this whole PitchIT program. Thrilled to be learning more and more about the MSP space. We didn't grow up there, so it's great to be learning new stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So you didn't grow up there. Well, first, thank you for your service as a Marine. I know once a Marine, always a Marine. I got that, but thank you. So tell us about your experience. Where'd you come? Don't do it, Adam. Don't do it, Adam. It's giving you some friendly advice. Don't do it.
My dad's retired 20 years Air Force, so.
Well, then you really can't do it then. Just saying. So let's talk a little about where were you before, Wes? That you weren't in the space, but now are in it.
I have been in the print space literally my entire career since I left the military. So we've lived and breathed toner and ink for the last 35 plus years.
Oh, my condolences.
It's in the blood. It's hard to get out.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh my God. I swear if there should be a comic book creation of Print Man. And
Yeah,
it's the evil nemesis of everybody.
Just shooting it.
Oh my Lord, it's so difficult. People just, it's ridiculous. Okay, so you're doing that for 20 years, you said?
Over 35 years now. I've been doing Nexera for 30 years this year.
Nice. Okay, so what made you move over into here to doing this?
Well, most of our current customers who are primarily dealers who are reselling printers and copiers are all diversifying. Everybody knows print took a pretty severe hit because of COVID and the change in behavior that happened with clients. Most of our customers are all looking to managed IT as a diversification strategy because every device we sell hooks to a network, right? Yeah. And so a lot of those companies were adopting ConnectWise, and they've been coming to me going, we want what you do for us in print, and we want you to do that for us in the MSP and managed IT space. And so we've been a little late to the game only because we felt like there was so much growth opportunity for us in our current discipline. We thought, well, we need to stay there, but then COVID hit and print took the hit. Now it's like, okay, maybe we better accelerate the plan of taking what we do and moving it into that managed MSP space.
Absolutely. No, and you know what, actually, funny story, just I'll make it brief, is one of a good friend of mine, a partner of me of a company I was with before. He was a printer guy. He was and he sold and made a huge business up in New York. And his problem was COVID. Nobody was printing. So he estimated he lost about 70% of his revenue.
Yep.
And so he moved over to become more of an MSP, actually. So because he had the clientele already. So it was a really good thing for him. It worked out in his favor completely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, print has recovered somewhat. It's maybe 80% of what it was pre-pandemic, but I'm not 100% convinced that's not just a bump, that, people are going back to their old ways because they weren't in the new way long enough. So when you start thinking about how do you handle documents electronically through the space, that was a temporary problem. Then they went back to their old behavior, but then eventually they're going to move back to the other way, right? In my opinion. Yep. So, print is not dead. It's just in its kind of reduction stage until people figure out what it's used for.
Sure. And the use will probably change, I'm assuming, as well. It won't be if you think about it, you had white pages and yellow pages, you had catalogs, those things have all gone away, and
demographics will affect that as well, right? There are some verticals that are always going to be hung on print, the medical, all of that still loves to print. Schools still love to print, but the millennial generation is not printing. They're moving documents another way. So that behavior will impact the office and the way they print.
Yeah. So let's talk about the current. All right. So Nexera, let's talk about this a little bit. What is it exactly? What does it do for people?
Dang, you're running this whole show yourself, Sean.
Don't worry, Adam. I got this. I got you, buddy. Just sit there and just look pretty.
I like it. So go ahead. Sorry, Wes.
Think of it back years ago, because we started before the internet even existed. And so when you're trying to fix a product or when you're trying to gauge how good you are, the only other way you could do it was you'd go to your peer groups and you'd sit around your peer groups and everybody would be going, oh, I'm so awesome. I've got all of this going for me. And everybody's telling everybody how great they are, right? And nobody actually really knows because there's no data to say what good looks like or whether you are or aren't good, right? At the time, we were working for a manufacturer that had a product that wasn't performing quite the way the manufacturer said it should, and it was impacting dealers' profitability. So long story short, they challenged me and said, if you can produce data that quantifies how bad this machine is affecting profitability, we'll consider fixing it. But until you can prove it's not you, it's you. And so we set about developing software that would find out, how do we track this? Same thing, ERP. So think ConnectWise is one platform, but how everybody uses it's different. Regardless of the standards ConnectWise lays out for how they use it, they can use it differently. And we found out very quickly. So how do you homogenize data? How do you call an apple without affecting the output? Long story short, by the time we got to the point where we could quantifiably prove it was the equipment, they said, we don't want to know, and defunded it. So easiest way to get out of that problem was to kill the budget so nobody saw the results. My customers at the time, or the dealers I had convinced to share data with me, said, this is awesome. For the first time, I get to see myself relative to somebody else, right? In a non-threatening, or more audit fashion, right? So back in those days, I would literally take and I would print a report. I'd print 2 copies of it. I'd mail one to them. I'd keep one, and we'd get on the phone and discuss what was going on. So we took it private in '93 and have been ever since developing processes around that. So currently we track every service event on about 4 million copiers and printers around the world out of 25 different ERP platforms to identify opportunities.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, at one time we started out bootstrapping a SQL database, and at one time I had almost as much data in my database as the Sabre system did for American Airlines. This was back in the '90s, right? So back in the infancy stages. But
my Lord, okay, so yeah, you know what? Actually, this is a great segue. And there's a quick question here. You mentioned about, how do you establish and show that this device or this product, or whatever, is not providing value and is losing money or whatever. It's such a big problem where, and we see this in all the conversations and all the MSP groups I ever watch. You hear MSPs always talking about, how do I determine what I charge, right? And also how do I build value on what I'm doing? Because, and it takes away their confidence in speaking to it. It's an unwritten rule knowing that this isn't working right now and you're paying money and you're losing money on it. You have a hole in your window, heat's going out the window, and it's wintertime. It's that simple. But if you can't physically quantify it, because it's hard for them to discuss it. So let's talk. I'd like to talk more about that, though. How does this work?
So obviously, for most everybody, labor is the biggest component of your expenses, right? So it's about how do you maximize, how do you coach, how do you establish goals, expectations for individual team members as a function of trying to improve that profitability. So I met Peter through a customer of ours that he was at prior to going to service leadership. And he was out here in Scottsdale in February, and he and I got to talking, and it sounded like service leadership on the MSP space is kind of like what we were doing on the print space, minus all of the data components, right? They were kind of the surveys / people feed data to me, but it's not the finite details, right? So we kind of build everything from the bottom up. I want to know every ticket that gets created, how long it took them to respond, what they did, how long it took them, what was the results of that process, right? Who was the individual? How does this individual compare to all the other individuals doing the same thing, right? So that I can say, this guy needs development, this guy's doing great, he's my superstar, right? Because as hard as it is to get people, the hardest part is making sure that everybody on the team is performing, because every customer I have has somebody that they don't let go that should be let go because they're scared they can't replace them.
Correct. Right? That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. And so our process is built around how do we measure, communicate, and work these folks through a bonus program, through access to their data. What are they doing? How are they comparing to their peers? How are they comparing to the rest of the world? Right. And then showing the upper management how those people are performing, because it's also a function of communications, right? We did a survey one time where we asked all of our technicians, how many of you get coached every month? How many is somebody communicating with you that you could do better at what you're doing? And it was like 20%. When we asked that same question of the management team, they said, oh yeah, we do it every month. So obviously a disconnect going on there, right? So our process is built about authenticating for management that these things that we know work are getting done as they're expected.
So go ahead, Adam.
Is your target market strictly office automation and managed print businesses, or is it all MSP businesses? I'm just kind of
Well,
curious.
currently we're very focused in print because that's our expertise. But as we started getting, as our customers are diversifying, they saw the value of our tool set and our solution set and said, if you could adapt that to the MSP space, it would be a heaven, because they get two completely different sets of data, right? They get the print side and they get the MSP side.
Right.
We're running businesses that do both, right? How do those two mesh together, and how do you show them how to manage both of those processes intermingle, even though they try to treat them as separate businesses? That they don't. Their financial statements are the same, right? They're all combined. So how can we get one consolidated picture of what we do and how we do it? So that's where we're headed.
So is this something that when you're doing this, first off, office optimization is probably a big deal, especially when people went remote too. You're evaluating the products they use along with the people, or is it just services you're looking at, like people themselves?
So it's both. So, and of course, in our world, we live in kind of a break-fix environment with copiers and printers. So
right.
Obviously the product performance is critical, because there's things the manufacturer can do that changes that. More often not, it's still labor, and it's still the technician's ability to do the job properly or supply the technician with the proper tools and parts. But at the end of the day, the customer is still calling, says, I need help. Somebody's still responding to that, whether it's help desk or on site. There's still the labor time associated with that, and the potential for parts that need to be fixed or replaced, or something needs to be done. So we see similarities, although it's a kind of a different measurement process. At the end of the day, labor is labor. So it's about how to meet with those folks.
So this is also becomes an enablement tool as well.
Correct. Yep. So we have bonus processes built into it. We have a human resources component built into it, so that anytime a tech's communicated with from a manager or supervisor, he gets an email that says, hey, we had this conversation. Do you contest it or do you agree with it? And if he contests it, it circles back. So HR is now getting confirmation that the technician was talked to. This is what we talked about. This is the new goal. This is the new expectation. They can upload photographs. They can upload video. They can do things that says, hey, this is what we saw that was wrong. You didn't follow up, do what you were supposed to do, kind of things.
So
right.
Let me. So Nexera, is it coaching and consulting, or do you have integrated dashboarding? Because it looks like you have all of the above, and so I'm just kind of curious of, does it integrate in ConnectWise, manage, and dashboarding tools, or what?
So we have our own suite of dashboarding tools that are probably all around telling each level of management what's going on with their support or what their peer group is doing, number one. Two, we do establish national benchmarks. So we show aggregate data that says, here's how everybody else is doing. Here's where you fit into that puzzle and where those opportunities lie. We also have a complete division that does professional services. So we take over dealers' back end, AR, AP, bank reconciliations, contract management. So we've got a team that does nothing but helps these smaller dealers who have not yet grown to a position where they need a dedicated person for that role, but need that function done right. So we can do it for them until they get to the point where they can justify the position, right? So many times the dealers really get hamstrung by having one individual in a key role, like let's say AR or AP. They know where all the skeletons are hidden. The owner doesn't know because he's busy out selling. He's out doing his thing, right? And all of a sudden he finds out a year later that, wait a minute, I'm not billing these customers properly. I'm not collecting properly. I've got all these past due. And faced one case, we found hundreds of $1,000s of embezzlement because the one person had control of both AR and AP.
Wow. Well, okay. So, and question of this is something I'm thinking about here. Right now, the way you're set up to work directly with MSPs,
Correct.
with what you're doing here, is this also something is this also a resale play as well, where they can work with their clients on this?
No, currently we have not done resell.
Okay.
Our primary clients are those independent reseller dealers that are providing the direct service to the customer. We also have 5 major manufacturers we do all of their direct operations on. So the Canon, Ricos, Toshibas of the world use us to aggregate data because they have disparate systems all around the world that are all trying to get data from, and we become the aggregator for that data.
Okay. Well, so okay, so but you could almost become like a utility for an MSP to use with their
Yeah.
clients as well.
Yes.
So indirectly, it's a resale of sorts. It's
Yeah.
not, except they're
It
not
could-
selling the client; they're selling the service of being able to do assessments on on their business office optimization.
Yeah, that's very
Okay.
possible. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And with that,
So
is
I'm the
there-
curveball. I'm the curveball in the picture because nobody knows. I mean, we've been in business the longest, but we're also not in the space. We're the newest, probably in the space.
well, you're just like every printing company out there at this point, because that's what they started. All they
Yeah.
started doing. Everybody was doing printers and toners and faxes. And they all switched over to the service. So you're in the right place, because I mean this competition, if anything, this is the biggest thing that we preface, is that when COVID took place, the largest digital transformation occurred that everybody been talking about for years.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go, we're going to become digitalized. We're going to, and they still wouldn't, and this forced them all to do this to some degree. And so cloud-based everything is
and we think there's a huge opportunity to talk to MSPs about print because it's still there.
Oh yeah.
It's still a huge revenue opportunity. It's way more profitable than MSPs are, as a general rule.
Yep.
Right. It is only a small percentage of a company's IT spend. So it's a relatively small component of their total IT spend. So if an MSP is not getting into print, there's an opportunity to make money at it done the right way, and we can be that expert.
Well, but one thing I would say though, do you think, or I'll position it to you first, print makes a lot of money. We see that, or companies that do this. But I also notice a different demographic of people that work for an MSP that work for a print company like that. Okay. Usually print companies, fax, copy machine companies, whatever, take your pick. They're all sales organizational focused first.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Whereas MSPs are tech focused first.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I think it's a couple parts. I think the margins always seem to, just like when I did VoIP, I feel like phone, those trunk slammers, the margins were much better for very little that they had to do afterwards. I feel the same way for copier and print and all that too. Whereas in the managed service world, it's a constant workload because they're constantly adjusting. There's updates there's just more work in general. So that's why the margins aren't as big.
Right. Well, and we're traditionally a strong sales organization, but 100% of our profit, or actual 78% of our gross profit margin, comes from service.
Yep, which makes
sense.
So
it's the contract after the sale that makes the money in the big picture.
Right.
But that being said, if you're in a managed IT business or an MSP business, you've got to be aware that there are printer companies out there trying to capture that business from you with a stronger sales organization. So if you can't compete with that, you run the risk of losing it. And after Peter's webinar the other day about how many MSPs are actually losing money or breaking even, in order to change that paradigm, maybe finding another revenue or profit source would help.
Yeah. Well, I would say this probably helps this lens to become more holistic as an MSP. I mean, obviously you can't be Walmart and you can't be Amazon where we also sell shoes. That's not the case, but you do have to come up with when clients look at their MSP, they look at them as their technology partner, right? They are their CTO ultimately. And so as a CTO, every company I ever worked within, helped out, the CTO made decisions on all the above, all those, and so you kind of should have an offering of some sort, even if you're not strong with it. And you have to align with the right partners too. So,
and printers are a vulnerability. They're on the network, and they have proven themselves to be vulnerabilities. So, whether you're the MSP managing the network but not managing the printers, or you're the printer company not managing the network, both of those have to be somehow holistically tied together to protect the customer.
Yep. Agreed. So now let's go back into this now, as far as your approach to MSPs, because this is newer to you for the market. Is it different in the way you're price structuring it? Is there a difference in the way you're onboarding them to get into this than you did with print? Or is it going to be the same? Is it the same?
Some of it is we don't know what we don't know. So obviously we're a part of Invent, and we're in the process of kind of pulling the data sets together. Obviously Peter's a great resource because service leadership kind of has somewhat of a framework there.
Yep.
We're just kind of dissecting it at a much finer level so that we roll up the data and start painting a different picture. So some of it we literally don't know what we don't know. And as we pull this data together, the goal is to be able to create multiple processes that say, here's your financials and what it looks like as a combined, right? Because very few dealers that do both print and are combining their finances accurately, right?
Sure.
That's a big challenge because ConnectWise data's got to go into the other ERP or vice versa and those kind of things. Two, there's the idea of taking data and homogenizing it, comparing one to another, even though they're all on ConnectWise, is not a common process still. So we think bringing that data together, looking for those opportunities, and then figuring out how to display that. But from a cost perspective, we basically do it on headcount. So it's all people oriented, right? So how many technicians do you have? That's what you're paying for. If you're doing professional services, it's basically by the hour.
Adam, bring us back. Adam.
Looks like everybody went away but me.
I was like, now we're on a weird screen. What we got going?
Oh my God. Look, it's the glitchies.
Pushing buttons.
Adam, stop touching things.
I there's this little, I had this little new Stream Deck thing, so I was playing with that little buttons.
Awesome. So, okay, so let's talk about this though.
Accents on me, okay? Just leave those on.
Well, when you talk for a bit, I like to actually have, complete engagement.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add into that, Adam?
No. On that topic, like you're thinking about the whole integration, you're part of the invent. It's like you get a lot of financial data. I think one struggle that I have and a lot of MSPs have is not very many platforms integrate into the financial platforms.
Correct.
So is there into QuickBooks, QBO, desktop, or, are you integrated in the financial side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even in the print space, there are dealers that use QuickBooks and use other platforms. So, as we've integrated with others, it's all about, streamline management of the chart of accounts and, trying to make sure everything's falling in the right bucket so that when you're comparing companies, with reliability that is being handled properly. And we have that whole coaching side that says, if you didn't set up your chart of accounts properly in order to get the right information, here's what you have to do, right? And being able to go back in, we're really experts on eAutomate, which is the primary platform for our industry. Yep. We actually go back into the database and modify the database so the GL is proper if in the event that they've set something up incorrectly.
Is this something that integrates? So as you're talking about this, I'm thinking QBRs also. So are you working with QBR company? I mean, I don't think you guys are a QBR itself, but you're part of it. So are you going to be integrating in with some of these QBR platforms?
Yes. Okay. That's the goal. Obviously, this really started, we're accelerating really fast. This started from a conversation with Peter in February. So we're really kind of trying to catch up relative to all of the other, folks on PitchIT. When I applied for PitchIT, I was flabbergasted when I was chosen, to be quite honest. I'm very humbled by it because it's like, this is a great opportunity.
Well, I can tell you partly the reason why you were chosen is because we were able to have the conversation with Peter even too. And we were able to identify where the need is, because there isn't all these companies. A good conversation. Actually, I just had this conversation earlier today with Craig Fulton. We were talking about the fact of when people do webinars and demos and stuff like that, a lot of times, and you said early on about the fact of having, you got to talk about the use case of what you're working with product wise. Everybody's using about being the Apple is a fact, right? I have the same product as you, but the way I do it might be slightly different, or what I use it for is, like mowing the lawn. I go left and right, you go north and south. That's how this works.
I go diagonal.
Well, there you go. And then there's diagonal, right? And then there's figure eights, and there's right. The fact is, it's all different, right?
You are California.
You are in California, exactly. You guys do everything different. So, you're spot on with what you said with that. But when we were talking about this, the need for to understand what you're working with to make real decisions has been a challenge in many industries. Like, you don't know what you don't know. kind of like when you run restaurants, they always watch labor. It's the biggest cost. They know that. So they automatically look to cut labor by, oh, we're not as busy as we were, but our helping cut labor. And they got to run their report every 15 minutes. But how do you run that kind of report on something like a copy machine that sits there every day? There's nothing. How do you know that's the deal? Or how do you, and then add on labor? How do you know people are being effective? So it's a big deal. So when we looked at this, and I wasn't the only decision maker, that's for sure. There was a panel of people that were involved in this. Actually, I probably made up about 0.001% of the value. I don't think they really cared what I had to say, but the rest were based off of that because the value in it is exactly that. MSPs are looking for a way to assess and make sure they're doing what they have to do internally. And also, and this is where we thought about the clients, and apply it to their clients even too, and show value.
Right.
If I can tell you, if an MSP can tell a client, if you follow what I do here, we'll optimize you, right? Whatever, and optimize is skewed because sure, whatever. But if I can say, we're going to take away 30% of your cost and help you to automate as much as you can wherever, or fix machines or whatever it may be, diagnostic checks with it, and we're going to be able to help you to increase by 20%, it's hard for people to say no.
Right.
But you also
we get clients that are we create client face or customer facing dashboards that help our clients go, here, we're being audited. Here's your KPIs and here's how we're performing. We're not saying it. Nexera is saying it, right, relative to the rest of the world. So, we may not be the best in the world, but we're better than the average. And that's what we're trying to sell you.
Absolutely. So, but I'm curious now, how does this apply though? So when somebody signs up with you, one of these MSPs, what's that look like?
So typically we have our own APIs or connectors that pull up to 2 years worth of data. We go through the homogenization process and then feed that data into a series of dashboards. Normally we do that all at no charge. And then we bring the dealer in and go, here's where we see the opportunities. Here's how our solutions function with your data. So it's meaningful. They understand exactly, and it allows me to pitch the ROI because I can see exactly what they're doing and compare that and say, here's where I see opportunity. Your techs are taking too long. They're spending way too much time in parts, or they're going back and forth to the office way too much, or they're not starting at 8 o'clock when they're supposed to start at 8 o'clock. All sorts of metrics that are kind of focused on the print space at the moment. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm getting the maximum amount of return out of that labor that I'm deploying, and I want to see where it's off.
Yeah. Yep. So is there an assessment that basically, hey, I want to dive into your services, kind of, can you get assessment of my data and give me some of these points, and then hey, here's the programs? Is that kind of how it functions?
Absolutely. So we do that really strongly in the print space. It hasn't, the whole invent process hasn't matured yet to the point where I can do that totally for an MSP, but for the print space, within 3 days, I can take 2 years worth of data and create more data reports than you can possibly imagine.
That's so okay. So now you do the diagnostic, you check everything for them, you tell them exactly where things are going, right and wrong.
Yep.
And then you tell them how to fix it as well. Then that's where Adam was going earlier about coaching and consulting too.
Yeah, we have basically a very strict business process. So just like a lot of what I've been hearing on the PitchIT campaigns is that it's a lot about process control and controlling the stack, controlling your targeted customer profiles, and making sure that you're not trying to be all things to all people. We kind of take a similar approach in print. So it's all about how do we design a territory in which we know one person can work effectively but keep them busy. We have more break fix, so it's a little different in our space, but ultimately I got to keep this individual geographically as confined as I can, cut down drive time and gas expense, right? How do I make sure he's carrying the proper essentials that he needs to do his job, so he's not having to stop and come back to the office to get stuff and to do anything? Then, from there, it's all about coaching and accountability, right? So how do I get this individual on board with the idea that there are specific things we need them to do, and they need to do every single time, right? There's no question. They need the right question, right? Making sure that all of the check boxes are checked instead of just blowing and going. Because a lot of times they get into the firefighting mode where they're just trying to solve that particular problem and not thinking about it in a big picture kind of way. So we create checklists and go, here's what you need to be doing every time. These are the questions you need to ask. This is how you engage the customer. These are the things you need to be doing. And then that feeds back to the system, says, here's the guys that are doing it. Here's the ones that aren't. We need to coach those folks. So then it becomes a more longer term process of coaching and developing. And then we created bonus programs around trying to get the financial incentives there to say, hey, you do these things, we can reward you for it.
So you can almost become a connector for relationships as well between other vendors.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're going to be the expert of all products in the world. That's impossible. But if you work, and
We
we'll
don't
just be
care
MSP space and sell.
Yeah, we don't care about being the experts on how to fix it. But within our customer base, there are people that are experts and they do it really well.
Yep.
And I can identify them and go, this is what's possible. You're a long way from possible, even as good as you are. You're a long way from possible. Shouldn't you be wanting to head that direction?
I think that's awesome. If honestly, every single vendor that ever watches this should be having their account managers make a relationship with you, because you would be their account manager proxy in the beginning. If you said, hey, this isn't working, you should be looking at doing this, whatever this consists of, this product. At that point, you should have a relationship with those account managers or whoever, or territory managers, whatever you want, whatever it is. Subject, that's the sales. I don't care. Somebody should know you to say, you should talk to Adam, because Adam provides a service or a product that can help you. Actually, Adam will become friends with you later. I'm sure of this.
Right.
Because this will be good for him too.
That's the key thing that's great about PitchIT, is it gives us an opportunity to have other people involved in which we can say, here's how we benefit you. Here's how that benefits us. But more importantly, how does it benefit the MSP?
Yeah, we do run in. We see quite a bit of e-automate, and definitely it's only kind of the copier businesses. And if they're like, okay, how do we integrate into ConnectWise? Well, we won't touch you e-automate with a 10-foot pole, but we know how to manage works.
Yeah,
and it's quite interesting in how you do it. And so I vaguely heard you also say something at the beginning of the call. You also have peer groups, is that right? Did I hear that?
No. We have had peer groups. We work with a lot of the industry peer groups. So there's 5 different major copier peer groups, and we're integral parts of helping them by taking and anonymizing the data, right? So when those peer groups get together, the joke was at the beginning was that a lot of these peer groups really got famous for just telling everybody what they wanted them to hear instead of the truth, because they didn't want to admit they sucked, and they didn't want to admit that they had issues that they weren't dealing with, right? Yeah. As they've matured over the year, and our industry has matured over the years, it's now all about, we're happy to disclose this. I don't necessarily want you pointing the finger at me, but I'll put my data in there as part of that group. So I create a whole, like a financial peer group. I don't show their revenue. I just show their percentages as they relate to the benchmark, right? Where are you? Are you higher or lower?
Which is what you want. At the end, that's what I want, is I want to know where I can improve quickly. I need a snapshot. A lot of times you see these like pivot tables. Oh my Lord.
I know, I grew up on tables.
Right. And they could be good to a degree. They were very good at their time when there was nothing better. Okay. Yeah. And even to this day, you still can do it at a decent, but if people don't understand how to aggregate the information to the pivot, that's the problem people have. And it just becomes, you basically don't need the table anymore. You just go page to page and tab to tab, because that's all they're doing. It does, and just put it on one page. That's not how that works. And
I'm so old. I'm so old. I use Lotus 1, 2, 3. So.
That's pretty old.
That's old.
Thanks,
I'm surprised. Okay, so good. As old as you are, and you're able to convert and progress in technology, nobody has an excuse not to do this.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
I mean, seriously.
There you go.
Like, people say they can't do it, they can't pivot, they can't make change, they can't evolve. The fact, because they're too old or whatever, bullshit.
No.
So you are literally like the service leadership for the copy printer industry. I mean, that's kind of what it's like, your data dashboarding, then you have the coaching on top of that. And it's impressive, Wes. I mean, it's built quite a nice business.
Yeah, thank you. I've been very blessed that, when I started it, I didn't think I'd ever be number one. I didn't think I'd live this long. 2, I was very surprised that the business lasted this long. But then I met Peter and I went, wait a minute, there is more to this story. It's not over yet. So
I mean,
out there and doing more.
Being on a crayon diet, I'm sure you weren't sure how you can stay healthy. I mean, I know what you Marines typically eat. The red crayons.
MREs, bro.
Whatever they're in front of us.
Their red crayons are their favorite. I always bring my Marine friends. I was Army for 9 years, so it just goes hand in hand. And it's like, but we all wanted to be in the Air Force, just so we're clear. The one thing that we all agree on is we should have went to the Air Force because there was better food, better housing.
Yeah. And an easier boot camp.
Oh my, it's not even, they shouldn't even call it that. They should, that's Club Med. Everybody knows.
Wes, tell me a fun fact about yourself.
Oh, fun fact. I am still a competitive shooter. I own a safari operation in Africa. If anybody ever wants to go on a safari in Africa, I can hook them up. So I've been doing that for 10 years as a side gig. Mostly started out as my son and my wife fell in love with doing it. So they kind of do that side of the business. I'm just the wallet.
That's how I feel about most things. I'm just a wallet. Like my eyes are up here. They're like, no, but your wallet's in your pocket. We need that.
Yeah. And if you've ever seen me on PitchIT, I also play guitar because my virtual background is my guitar room. So
which is nice. Pretty solid.
So there's multiple facts. How's that?
That's interesting.
Well, right. a man at your age has done a lot.
Yeah. Point of life, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It is. It absolutely
create as many memories as you can possibly can, as many people as you can, and go out with a smile.
I couldn't agree more. That's awesome.
It is. Wes, so I'm assuming you're going to be out at IT Nation Connect this year. So that means we do definitely need to catch up and have maybe a cigar and a drink, a little whiskey or something.
That sounds like a good plan to me.
I'm teaching Adam how to smoke cigars.
So yeah. Don't inhale, just swirl.
Yes.
Taste.
I really like the nice sweet flavored ones. Those work really good around a campfire.
Oh, you mean like acids and whatnot? Yeah. Or the Javas. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, we're not doing any acid.
It's a name brand.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Not the California cigars.
Yeah.
You're so cultured.
I know, right? Wes, it's been really great. Any closing thoughts, Nexera?
Looking forward to kind of getting more indoctrinated in the MSP space and meeting all the great people that have already been part of PitchIT, but part of ConnectWise and IT Nation. So it's going to be a great experience.
Cool. Are you going to be at any events? Are you going to ChannelCon?
Again, half of these I didn't even know about or don't know about, so I'm learning as I go. So IT Nation, I did go to it 3 years ago, or actually longer than that, because I pitched this idea to Arnie before he sold. So yeah, I had a great conversation with him about what we were doing, and he was really supportive of the whole project. But again, you got to kind of make hay while the sun shines, and we're focused on our business. So
for sure. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. Sean, any closing thoughts?
I'll just say I love the concept. Being that I've been in production for so long in my life and revenue generation, one of the biggest challenges is always try to provide value. Sometimes you're making that of thin air. Like, you should just pay us because we're cool. I mean, kind of like, that's not how that works. So being able to arm people with tools, the ammunition necessary to actually go do the job. Now, granted, you're not doing it to end users right now with them, but I don't see why you won't at some point. But even for MSPs themselves, one of the biggest challenges with small businesses is helping them to optimize their business. To be able to get the resources, the right resources in for production's sake. So I totally appreciate that position. I mean, because I've had those fights with CEOs. We're not able to accomplish, like, you want this to happen, so do I, but it can't happen because of A, B, and C, whatever those are. And you providing some element or the ability to plug in and show and to actually come up with a real solution, show the real numbers, the real data, and then the solution is a huge deal.
Right.
So I totally appreciate that. And by the way, probably Wes thinking this way is because in the military, we always look for how to get rid of all the dumb shit. Yeah. Get rid of all the dumb shit because we have to deal with dumb shit anyway. We already have to embrace the suck. So we don't want to embrace the suck in the wrong places.
There you go.
So, and Sean, I hear that Keith.
No, he did not. Keith did not. Take that down. No, Keith, you didn't.
All right. So it's been fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, we are going to be live next Tuesday at 12 Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, Pitch It Live. And you're on the road after that next week.
In 2 weeks, yeah, I'll be at ChannelCon for CompTIA. Wes, you and I can talk about that, and we should.
Yep.
And then the following week after that, I'll be hanging out with you, Adam, at Evolve in Denver. Yeah, and then 2 weeks after that, I'll be at ASCII in Miami, and then I'll be at. Oh, by the way, for those of you that don't see it, and Wes is something you want to look into as well. Something to really start talking about is how people can collaborate. People should start looking at IT Nation Share events. They're back.
Yes.
They're back in full swing. We have Q3s coming now. Everything is actually going very well for them. Get back involved. I know people are hesitant because of what happened with COVID, but I can assure you that we've already gotten people back, and it's actually been a pretty big request from lots of people to get back with their colleagues. So I recommend that.
Yeah, highly recommend that. Definitely. I think registration's even open for IT Nation Connect.
Yep.
So let's just be sure and register early, get that discounted pricing and so forth. So I know we'll be there. And so we're excited to keep doing these things. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
John, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Wes.